things that you mentioned. One is there is an element of thriving, and the element of thriving also presumes an element of trust. So one is today, given the population numbers we are, but tomorrow what the envisaged number is, how does this model actually also grow in that to be able to take care of that? The second is in terms of the distinction between the needs and the wants. And one of the things that is possibly also seen is to see is that we don't play ourselves into the hands of the economy or the money, right? But one of the things that we are seeing slowly is that this trust in abundance or the fact of being taken care may not be influenced by what's happening outside. We're seeing practices come in where more than the needs is also the fear of scarcity or the fear of something much more. Would I be able to take care or not? And then those different conversations come in. So coming to you, David, is how do you see this sense of where inherently one is expected to feel abundant and stay that and welcome it, but that there is also that sense of scarcity that comes in to wanting to take care of the family perhaps in the best means as possible, or maybe there is a certain expectation, our own tendencies perhaps, one where we have come from, what are we used to, or what we want to give. And while there is the system of maintenance to take care of the basic needs, but there is also the practice to say, can I get something more, right? And for whatever it may be, right or wrong is not the debate. So how do we decouple the work from the money aspect so that the fact that I'm being a willing servitor of divine consciousness, the joy that comes from it, the willingness to come together to build it, how does one strike a balance? How does one engage? How does one work and encounter through this scarcity that seems to be coming in, and that, whether I don't know, but does it bring about a certain amount of practices which undermine the potential of can we work collectively towards a prosperity-based model? Sorry.
Yeah, difficult questions. They've been put it very correctly, saying that the money system that exists today is fundamentally built on the notion of scarcity. And based on the money supply that moves around, there's always a grab for what you can get for your needs or wants. Now in Auroville context, and even in outside world, what's the model for money is, of course, one is its scarcity, but other is it's a liquid aspiration. Okay, because it's a liquid aspiration, you can mold it to your need. Whoever wants can mold it. It goes from one person to another, and then they mold it to what they need. So in that way, it is very fluid, very flexible. Now in Auroville, we have to bring that fluidity, flexibility in our system, but not necessarily based on money, but based on a collective system that allows different people's aspirational needs to be met at their different level of engagement that they are at. Because we are all so different. Everybody has a different needs at a different stage of life. When they are young, and when they are children, they like, different things that they are learning, music, art, or bicycles. And as a family, if you do provide for all these per unit, it becomes very expensive. But outside, that's the model. So everybody tries to, grab the same things, but in such a multiplied manner, so your resources are not optimally utilized. Now, even as a family, there are different needs at when they're young family, when they're elder, and as individually, when different people progress at a different time, their needs will adjust. So we as a society, how do we start structuring systems that takes care of people's fluid aspirations? Okay. Now that's the need that we have to fulfill. And one thing we have to realize in Auroville context, to make what we've been called for, as I was saying before, in that without prosperity, as the mother wanted, without a system that takes care of need of the individuals within a collective process or collective milieu, Auroville as she wants will not happen. we may keep struggling, it will not happen. This is just my very strong feeling that unless everybody feels that their needs are taken care of in their own way, that they will not be engaging with Auroville in the true spirit and sincerity that they would need to be doing. In that respect, today what has happened is we have left our system to eke out for themselves their sustenance. And that eking out is the modality, and that again is driven by the economy of the scarcity. So different people try and eke out, or at least grab whatever. Grab is not the right word, but for them they feel that is the need. And also then what happens as a human nature? Oh, he has it, I need to have it. And again, it's one of those same things that happens everywhere, right? So that also reflects here. Whereas here, it should, as you said, it should be a call for excelling yourself in your skills. And the competition is on how do you do better by example or by engaging, rather than by, I have this, I should have that, or there's. So if, so even for teachers and others, when the calling can change, it can. And instead of having entrepreneur, entrepreneur is something that you're engaging with. You're engaging your creativity, you're engaging even your ability to generate wealth even in the outer sense. Because see, finally in Auroville, in order to create the system, when we come to resource mobilization, we have to interact with outside and inside. Okay? So we will use the money system, but that is only for interfacing with external, because we are dependent on external, and what external world depends on our ways of working. So in that exchange, we will work with money, and some individuals will be good with money. And mother actually realized that she had many people around her who had actually chosen to bring money for Auroville's needs in the early days. If you look at it, the first 50, 60 acres, a percent of acres that we own on the land were purchased during that time, in the first 5-6 years, right? So, and then the people that even launched prosperity. I personally, when I was a child, I used to go and fill up baskets for the prosperity system here, and I've lived in ashram, so I understand the prosperity system. But again, for Auroville, it's not the same thing. Ashram, mother has provided everything in ashram, even children's need, families need, but the families are different there. Whereas in Auroville, we have to now expand out, and again, we don't have to restrict ourselves. First, in now coming back to resource mobilization and some methods or tools that we can look forward to, we have to first understand what the needs are. And initially, we may not be able to provide the most flexible and fluid system that we can. But keeping that in vision, at least try and cover 60-70% of communities' need, at a different level. At the society level, education is one of these needs where higher education is not provided. But today, with the online education, you can provide degreed education sitting right here. And then you encourage those who made good grades, you support, otherwise say, hey, maybe do some vocational training. So those teachers can be engaged in different ways. If somebody has an entrepreneur thing and they want to start something new, why not? But it's in the context of community. So if we can find out what the community needs are at a different level, and I'm not a sociologist, I'm not an expert in social economics, or I have passion to do socio-economic development for Auroville, like the pioneering for greening, but I'm not a person who can design the system. Then I'm sure slowly we can, as a different people interested, they can come together. Anand is working on it, Jocelyn was, Parshi, and there are many people who started looking at how we can develop, at least understand what is needed. That was one thing I did worked on in FAMC before, and sometimes what happens, people get stuck at, we will not be able to do, how we do it, where is the money coming from? Then what happens is it's like a sandwich, you start top and bottom approach. First we have to know what the needs are in general sense from different people, and finally it's not rocket science, it can be. And then you start seeing if we have to do what it would take. But for all this you need a proper monitored system as to how much it costs, what our true needs are, and how we are utilizing it. If, of course, I'm not trying to saying we have to look at it and wherever the leakage and all that, that's not the point. But the idea is if we can bring transparency, if we can bring accountability, if we can bring technology tools, then what happens? The drudgery of trying to first form the base. It's like when you want to have a beautiful green structure, I'm saying with the plants, you have to have a base, you have a frame. So you create the frame, work with technology and tools, on which different things will start growing, organically, on its own. So that framework for prosperity we have to provide. And that requires a certain structures, how the distribution will happen of various things, how the variety of schools or drama places and other things will be done, and what it means to sustain their needs. If there are, actually some of these things, when you say we want to go from today 3,000 to 10,000 or 15,000, actually there are models that say, okay, how many doctors you will, Kashi is very much structured that also. How many doctors you will need, how many food acreages you will have to grow, and so those are business models which are available as and we can work with that, So those things, it gives us how much equivalent money resources we may need. And again, we can look at some of the creative people who come in different areas. We can create workshops, ateliers for artists, so that it's not each artist having to fend for themselves, but there's an atelier. Same thing, we can have a common architectural office. We have been suggesting from a long time. Auroville was doing that, it didn't happen. So all these are collective ways of working together that have fallen apart, because we had left it to individual to fend for themselves, and that is what happened. We moved away from it because we just did not have the means, and that is fine. But I think today we are at a point where these things can be gathered back in, and the movements have started. And I think, as I said, some of these things, understanding what are the needs from different levels, understanding what our growth path is, how many people we need, and then from that, just mechanically coming down to how much food we need, how much healthcare we need, what are the different areas, how much cultural programming, how much education. But those are just the mundane basic stuff. But how do we also bring in the real Auroville that is, and that's where the freedom is. And freedom will only come when people are satisfied that, not satisfied, but convinced that their needs are being met. And only when you show the roadmap, when you show the dialogue, you show the working out, the equations and the stuff like that, then it's logic. Because we are mental beings still. So the convincing only will happen when you start rolling out, methodically. So look, this is what it is, we're going to roll out here. This is what we're going to do. And then step by step show it, we make it happen. So those are kind of the movement I'm seeing. When we can have more dialogue on what resources we need, if we talk.